All right, everybody, it is Friday, February 16th, 2024, and it is indeed a heck of a morning. Yes, there I am. We are live on the MMA Fighting YouTube channel. You can still hear the show in its entirety shortly thereafter on the MMA Fighting Podcasting Network. What's going on, everybody? I am Mike Heck. Hope you're all having a fantastic Friday. We are on the eve of UFC 298. Man, cannot wait for this card. Cannot wait for this main event between Alexander Volkanovski and Ilia Topuria. We had the press conference yesterday, and normally I will jump on the show on a Friday following a press conference and be like, yeah, that was kind of bad or kind of weird or kind of strange. I have to say this might have been the best pre-fight press conference I can remember in quite some time. It was super fun. It had a little bit of everything. There was some trash talk. There was a whole bunch of stuff going on. Volkanovski dressing like the old man was absolutely incredible. Just everything about it was great. Ilia Topuria playing the villain role, telling everybody to shut the F up. Volk followed asleep. Like, everything about it was fantastic. It was so good. It was so good. I kind of felt bad for the Anthony Hernandezes and the Roman Kopulovs of the world because they were just kind of sitting up there. But it was a lot of fun. I enjoyed it. The crowd was super into it. John Anik hosting always makes these a little bit better in my eyes because he gets super into it. And did you see what happened when Topuria reached over and took the belt? Anik just standing there like a G right in the middle. Didn't budge an inch. But that fight just ramped up a little bit. And I even liked what Ilia had to say when they faced off. He said, look, I respect you as a person. I respect you as an athlete. I respect you as a professional. I'm just trying to accomplish my dreams. And they had a nice little handshake. It was super good. Enjoyed it a lot. So I don't really have a whole lot of bad things to say about it. And shout out to Volkanovski for stealing the show and just living the gimmick right now. Shout out to you, Gustavo. Hope you got some Dunkin'. You betcha. Got it right here. Black iced coffee. Ready to go. All right. Let's mess around and have some fun. It's Friday. Let's answer some questions. Let's get into this thing. Obviously, we have the brand new Super Chat feature, which I enjoy. You guys are enjoying as well. So, Super Chatters get bumped to the front of the line, but I will get to as many questions as I can. We'll go to about 11:30 Eastern time because we got the official weigh-in stream coming up at noon Eastern. So get excited for that. Little NBA action. Get an NBA question. What's the stake here for the East juggernaut teams like the Knicks, Celtics, and the Cavs? Do you think D-Mitch leaves in the offseason eventually? I'm not really sure. I think the Celtics have like more to lose than anybody else, and maybe that's just the homer in me, but Jesus, man. They have been looking real good. They beat the holy hell out of the Nets. Beat them by over 50 the other night. Like, how could you even finish a game when you're just getting iced like that? Craziness. This press conference felt to me that pressure is finally getting to Ilia. What did you think? I don't know if I felt that, but I don't know. I think Volk handled it perfectly. Just kind of leaned into everything, almost like he ignored it. Ilia's going off on a rant, and Volk's pretending to fall asleep. Like, he said so much without saying anything. It was great. It was great. So maybe it is. Look, that's and this is the big question about this fight from the Topuria side. Is this too much too soon for him? Because it's one thing to be on a pay-per-view main card. It's one thing to headline a late morning, early afternoon fight night show in Jacksonville, Florida. It's a whole different thing to headline a pay-per-view, fight for a world title, and potentially be the world champion. Ilia's playing the role, and if he wins, pushed all the chips in the middle, and he's going to cash out in a big way. He's going to become a star. But if he loses, it's going to be tough for him. But he will learn lessons either way. So it's a huge question about Ilia. Is he the guy? Is he for real? And is he ready to live up to the potential at 27 years of age already? His best win is Josh Emmett. Josh Emmett is a real good fighter. to go from Bryce Mitchell on somewhat short notice to Josh Emmett to Volkanovski without fighting the Yairs, the Ortegas, the Maxes, etc. It's a pretty big leap. So, a lot of questions. There's a lot of questions on the Volk side, too. And that's the beauty of a fight like this, is we're going to get all the answers tomorrow. What's up, Mike? I still think we can revive the hashtag #BJoePfeiffer hype. His next 3 fights should be Edmund Shabazian, Abus Magomedov, and then Brad Tavares. After these 3 wins, we are so back. This whole Joe Pyfer is done and he sucks and he wasn't as good as, wasn't good to begin with stuff I'm seeing is just ridiculous. It's just like Jack Hermanson is a good fighter. Dude has been there. He's fought really good dudes. And this was really good matchmaking because either Joe Pyfer was going to go in there and win and then they could boost him up a little bit more, or he's going to learn a valuable lesson from fighting a guy like Jack Hermanson. And guess what? He's going to learn a valuable lesson from this. He won the first 2 rounds. Clearly won. We could see the momentum swinging in round 2, but Jack's good. He's a good fighter, and he's a really tough guy to beat in these situations. The losses Jack Hermanson has suffered have been to legit guys, or just weird things happened, like the Roman Dolidze fight, the late substitution, the way that fight ended. But he's been in there with the Chris Curtises and a lot of these up and comers, and this is what Jack Hermanson does. The 5 rounds made it really interesting, and this is one of the big questions I had. What happens if this fight goes to round 3, round 4, round 5? We got our answer. There's no way Joe doesn't grow from this. Even Jack on the MMA Hours, he's got a lot of great skills. Dude hits like a truck. He's going to grow from this, and he's going to learn from this. And we knew the natural gifted skills that Joe has are enough to beat a lot of these guys in this division. Who he fights next, I'm not sure. I don't know if they throw him in there with Shabazian. Tavares isn't a bad idea. Abus isn't a bad idea. I forget who I picked. I don't know if I picked anybody for him on to the next one, but just give him a top 30 middleweight that he could beat, potentially. I don't know. I kind of like the loser. I mean, if you want to do the loser of Hernandez and Kopylov, that's not a bad idea. But if you want to go a little bit further back, I don't mind that either. Let me see. Left lane man, pick a Volk by decision. I don't think Ilia is going to be as good as the nail. He looked phenomenal against Josh, but it's easy to piece up a guy with no defense. Volk's going to stick him with a jab. Volk's one of the smartest fighters we've ever seen. So, do you think there'll be a straight rematch if Volk loses? Cheers from Holland. I don't think there'll be a straight rematch. I think if Volk loses, especially if he gets finished, that's back-to-back knockout losses. I think he's going to take some time off. I do think if he wants to come back, his first fight will be for the belt. You do Ilia versus... It's interesting. Because if Ilia wins, if I'm Movsar Evloev, I am the biggest Brian Ortega fan that has ever lived. Because if Yair Rodriguez beats Brian Ortega and Ilia Topuria is the champion and the UFC goes to Spain, Topuria versus Yair for the belt in Spain would be friggin' enormous. It would be huge. Spain versus Mexico. I mean, you just can't write it better. But I do think when Volk's ready to come back, he gets an immediate title shot. But if Volk wins, then things are going to get interesting. Does he stay at 45? Does he fight Evloev? Or does he just say, you know what? I slayed the dragon. I slayed the guy everybody thought was going to beat me. I'm out of here. I'm going to 155. So many questions. But yes, if he loses, I do think his next fight will be for the belt. Don't think it's immediate. I think he will take some time off, but whoever the champion is when he's ready to come back, he will fight them. If Merab loses to Henry Cejudo on Saturday, would you like to see him fight Corey Sandhagen or the winner of Davison versus Cody? Man. There is so much on the line from Rob Dwelishvili, it's not even funny. He has, outside of the main event, nobody on this card has more to lose than Merab, in my opinion. And I know you can counter with, well, Henry Cejudo said it's all or nothing. If I lose, I retire. First of all, you got to take anything Henry Cejudo says with a grain of salt. I think we've learned that over the years. But I do honestly think that there is a very real chance that Henry does walk away if he loses, because there's really nowhere for him to go at this point. He's so far out of the title conversation at that point. And there's just not like a lot of interesting matchups for him. But if Henry wins, he's getting a title shot. Merab loses, it is not good for him. He is going to have to claw and scrape and scratch his way back. And in my personal opinion, and by the way, all the respect in the world to Merab. I think he's been just sensational on social media. I thought he was great at the press conference yesterday. He's getting over. People were cheering Merab. When was the last time you saw Merab is like this ultimate baby face? He was getting cheered in Anaheim. It was great. Social media stuff's fantastic. But we know how the UFC feels about fighters that they don't typically love. And if Merab loses, he's going to have to win 6 in a row to even sniff another opportunity at the belt. Sandhagen, I don't mind the Davison versus Cody fight. My hunch would be if Merab loses and Umar Nurmagomedov wins March 2nd, that will be his fight. He will have to fight Umar. That's what I think they'll do. Great questions, guys. This is great. By the way, official weigh-ins, noon Eastern, right here on the same channel. So get excited for that. And if you're just joining us, there's a lot of questions here. If you just are like, you know what, I don't want to wait for my turn, you can invoke the super chat clause and you get to skip the line altogether. How about that? Georgie, medium people made Ilia a villain. When you fight Alex, you're a villain anyway, so he went fully in that game and he did great. Which fight of Volk do you remember with this hype? I mean, the first Islam fight, to me, had a ton of hype. But yeah, you could say, I was in Vegas for UFC 276 fight week, and there was a ton of hype around, at least with the people who were in Las Vegas. The fight everybody wanted to talk about when I was there was the trilogy fight between Volkanovski and Holloway. So many people thought Holloway was going to go in there and just rinse Volk. It was just so many people. It was crazy. And then Volk maybe had the best title defense I've ever seen in my life. It was fantastic. So this is up there. I would say it's top 3 or 4. Islam's number 1 for me, the first one. And there was a lot of hype around the second one too. Even with the short notice nature of it. So, but Ilia's done a great job. He's done a great job promoting this fight, but now he's got to deliver. Could Ilia be the next? Thank you, Chase, for the super chat. Could Ilia be the next big heel in MMA? The reaction he got at the press conference, his mannerisms and confidence, etc. He has super potential. Absolutely. This guy has it all. The common man would look at a guy like Ilia Topuria and hate him. It's the Tom Brady thing. It's the Derek Jeter thing. Ilia dresses like a star. He walks like a star. He talks like a star. He's got the confidence of a star. He's already saying, I'm the champion. I'm already 15-0. It's like this fight has already happened and he's already won. Like, he's doing everything right to make you not want to like him, or at least respect him in his game, understand he's a really good fighter, but you would pay money to watch him lose. But in Spain, if he fights in Spain, holy smokes, he is going to look like a freaking hero. He's going to look like Bret Hart and when he was in Canada, even as a heel in America. Like, he will be so over. But yeah, he's doing everything right. He's definitely doing everything right. So he could. If he wins, he is on a rocket ship. No doubt about it. Thank you, Kenny. I bet on both Volk winning by decision and Ilia winning by KO sub. If either happens to come out ahead, which outcome do you think is more likely? I kind of think if Ilia wins, man, they're both pretty close. I'm actually like the opposite of you. I'm very exposed on Volkanovski right now from a betting perspective for the watch party. I'll keep this up there. I have a straight bet on Volk, and then I have Volk by KO TKO. And I think there's like a DQ thing in there too, at like plus 250 or something. But I'll say, like, I think if Ilia wins, he's going to knock him out. It will be a knockout if he wins. But either is possible. I'll tell you what, if Topuria goes out there and like 49-46 is Volkanovski and just dominates him, like that would be incredibly impressive. A finish would be great. But man, if he goes out there and just dusts him up over, if he like Sean Strickland's him, if he did what like Sean Strickland did to Israel Adesanya, that's incredibly impressive. Thank you, Kenny, by the way. Not on X. Appreciate the YouTube vids. Yeah, we're going to try to do this more during pay-per-view weeks. So the next time we'll do this is probably the Friday before 299. And I would say there will be a lot of excitement for that card. Let's see what else we got. Elizabeth, Mike, do you recall a time in recent memory where a singular stat in MMA has taken hold of the public psyche as much as the 35-plus title success rate? I've seen it everywhere. Yes and no. I think you see it more with the challenger. Like, that's what I've really heard it more, and I know it's come up a little bit more here because Volk's getting older, but we didn't really hear this much chatter about it during the Yair fight. We didn't really hear anything about it. We just heard the matchup was a tough one. Yair could have been a stylistic nightmare. We didn't really have the age conversation, but yeah, this comes up a lot. But mostly, like when TJ Dillashaw fought Aljamain Sterling in Abu Dhabi, that was like the first time like this thing really caught fire. And then since then, every single fighter that is 35 plus that has challenged for a belt at 170 and below, this has become a thing. It's become a conversation piece. So yeah, it's a stat that gets thrown around a lot. It is a question here, but I don't look at it as Volk being 35 plus. I think if Volk started MMA 2 years prior, if Volk was 34, it was coming in on a losing record and getting knocked out by Islam Makhachev, I still think we would have the same questions. Is Volk, quote unquote, falling off the cliff? Has Father Time caught up with him? I think these same questions would happen if Volk was 34. He's got a lot of fight mileage on him, and he's fought really good guys. When you fight Max Holloway 3 times, you lose something. It takes something from you. When you fight Islam Makhachev, the consensus, there's that word, best pound-for-pound fighter on planet Earth, twice, even in a close decision loss, then getting knocked out, that takes something from you. When you fight the Ortegas, when you fight all these really good guys, the Jose Aldos of the world on the rise, it takes little pieces of you. So I don't think I don't look at the age statistic as much in this fight as I may have done with the TJ Dillashaw Sterling fight, if that makes sense. With the win, Volk is in a different league. He destroyed Holloway, and he's great. He's already in a different league. He's in a different league already. He's so damn good. Mike, what should be next for Ian Gary if he gets past Jeff Neal? He's been looking for Colby, and Colby himself sounded open to it on Submission Radio. Is that a good fight for Ian at this stage? I think 1,000% he's going to call for Colby if he wins, and I think the UFC would be extremely interested in making that fight. So yes, I do think that fight happens if he wins. And I think Colby would take it. I think he understands I think he understands that it's a tough fight. But he also probably understands that it's a big fight and it would draw a lot of eyeballs and a lot of attention. And I think he also understands that if I'm going to fight Ian Gary, I have to fight him now because he's only going to get better. It's only going to get better. I'm on the Jed train of Ortega sucks and Emmett is a better win. I don't know if that's true, but Ortega, for a guy who's been around a lot and fought for a belt, there's still so much mystery about him. They legit brought up the age stat on UFC on the line. It's gone corporate. Yeah. It comes up a lot. I've seen it on Twitter, but again, to me, I don't look at it like that. Lazy bet, enjoy your dunks. Mike, I know you and Connor will talk about it on the watch party tomorrow, but if Topuria loses to Volkanovski on Saturday, do you view him as overrated? No. No, I don't. I view him as a guy who fought like one of the 3 best fighters in the world and maybe one of the 5 best or maybe one of the 5 most talented fighters we've ever seen compete inside the octagon. Like, you can't. Volk is so good. He's the guy. He's the guy at 145. So I don't think he's overrated. That's one of the big questions about this fight. Like, was this too much too soon? Should he have had one more fight? Should he have fought a Yair or an Ortega or somebody else that was ranked slightly above Emmett before getting this fight? Because this is a big leap. It's just a big leap. It's not exactly the same, but it's very similar to the discussion we had last week about Joe Pyfer. Is this too much too soon? There's a huge difference between Abdul Razak Al Hassan and Jack Hermanson. I mean, a ginormous leap. So, no, I don't view him as overrated if he loses. I view him as a guy who probably needed one more fight before getting there. But still, incredible talent. This guy's he's probably going to win the belt at some point, even if it's not tomorrow. He's going to be back. If he loses, he will be back. There's not a ton of 45ers right now that I would pick to beat Ilia Topuria right now. Mike, you've been lifting. Yes. Well, the CrossFit thing. Been on I don't know. I've upped the level a little bit, so I don't know. But thank you for noticing, I guess. Is Costa being completely counted out? He looks in the best shape of his life, and Whitaker is coming off a KO loss. I don't think he's being counted out. I know let me see what the betting odds are right now. I know Whitaker's a pretty sizable favorite, and that's not that surprising to me. Whitaker's minus 238 right now. That's about right. But a lot of people that I've talked to, in this space about which fight could be weird and create a headliney storyline coming out of this event outside of the main event, a lot of people feel like it could be Paulo Costa just doing weird things. The guy is still very good. I know he hasn't fought in a while. He's still very good. Very talented. He's rough and tough. But Robert Whitaker's really good. You can make a strong case that Robert Whitaker is the 3rd best middleweight in the world right now. I mean, look at his losses. He lost to Israel Adesanya and he lost to the current champion. But he's beat the hell out of pretty much everybody else he's fought. So it's a big fight for Rob, big fight for Costa. We'll see what happens. I don't think he's being counted out, though. 100% a live dog. Agree. Ilia versus Patty. No, they won't do that. Kopylov is an absolute hammer. Him and Pavlovich have had very similar UFC career arcs. Bad debuts, long time off during COVID. Comeback starching everyone. I like this fight a lot. Would I have preferred the Ikram Aliskerov fight? Yes, I would. But he's very good. Again, this is another big leap for Roman Kopylov. This is a big leap for Roman Kopylov. He's got a nice win streak. He's finishing dudes. He's icing them. He's looked real good. And remember, on that episode of On to the Next One, after Kopylov lost his debut, remember who believed in him, who said, don't jump off the train just yet. And now look at the guy. 4 straight knockouts. He's looked pretty solid. but the competition is nowhere near the level of competition that Anthony Hernandez has fought. And I think Kopylov has a style that makes him very interesting in this fight because he's good at defending takedowns and he hits like a freaking truck. So it's a really good fight. It's a perfect main card opener. Absolutely perfect. Let's see. What else we got? Is Saturday a must win for Mackenzie Dern? Close. It's as close as you can get. Because I don't think, I said this on BTL yesterday, and I truly believe this. I don't think she's ever out of the conversation. The UFC really likes her. She's easy on the eyes. She draws a reaction either way. But I think clearly and there are people who are still hanging on here to the Mackenzie Dern title dream. I think more people will jump off that and pivot in a different direction. But it's close. It's very, very close. She's got like the winner of this fight is in a tough spot anyways, because Mackenzie ain't getting a title shot if she wins. Amanda Lemos certainly isn't getting a title shot if she wins. The winner of this fight's going to have to fight Tatiana Suarez next, and that's probably not going to go well for either of these two ladies. If Volk wins and does make it to 300, who do you think he would fight? They're not going to turn him around for 300. He's not going to fight at 300. Because that's the question. Who would he fight? Can't do Islam again. Gaethje and Holloway are already fighting. The only thing you could do with Volk is if something happens with Max and you need a substitute. Or, that's literally it. That's literally all you can do. Something happens with Max or something happens with Oliveira or Sarukian. Those are the only spots that fit. He wouldn't headline because, like you just perfectly put it, there's nobody for him to fight. You can't do him and Evloev to headline 300. As much as I love that fight, that's not a 300 fight. More Volk. Who does Volk fight with the win? Who does he fight with a loss? A loss, whoever the champion is. And a win, I'm not sure, because he might go to 55. I have to think about that if he wins. I don't think, maybe the UFC will pay him to fight Evloev, but don't really know if that's going to happen or not. Let's bring Kenny back in. Thank you, Kenny. Thank you, Kenny. What's the bigger obstacle to booking DDP versus Izzy for 300? DDP needing more time to recover, or is it Izzy not ready to return from his hiatus? It's if I can only choose these two options, it's probably the former. It's probably the DDP thing. But I think the correct answer is either way, moolah. It's money. Pay them whatever they need, and let's make this freaking fight. What are we doing here? What the hell are we doing here? I don't understand. Do you see the betting odds? The betting odds are favoring Leon versus Bilal. God. I'm starting to feel more and more like that's the fight. I feel like the longer this takes, the more likely it's going to be that fight. And if we don't have an announcement, before the 298 broadcast ends, I think that's what Dana's going to announce at the press conference. And that is going to go over like a fart in church. Are the new grounded fighter rules that Andy Foster proposed in effect for UFC 298? No, they have not. I think like they basically just like agreed to look at it, but I don't think it's like officially official yet. Which undefeated fighter loses their O on Saturday? Gary, Nakamura, or Barlow? I would say neither, but I'll go Barlow as like the best chance, but I still think he wins. Just because he's newer. I think Gary wins and Nakamura is definitely going to win. Got Ilia money line back when he was plus 155. Hey, listen, if Ilia goes out there and wins, it's not going to surprise me. But until I see it. Until I see it. Until I see somebody do it to Volk at 145, I can't bet against him. What's next for Costa if he beats Whitaker on Saturday? Should the UFC rebook Shemaev and him as the Saudi main event, or do you see him fighting someone else like Cannonier / winner of Alan Vittori? I think they'll try to make the Hamzat fight. I think that's a good one. But, I mean, he could get a title shot. If DDP, let's just say they do DDP Izzy and DDP wins, like they would definitely do Costa versus DDP. And that fight would be hilarious. That fight would be hilarious. Are we experiencing a resurgence and second coming of Asian MMA with guys like Taira, Nakamura, etc. now in the UFC and making waves? Could we have an Asian champion in the next few years? Yeah, it's possible. I mean, we have Zhang Wei Li right now. Can't forget that. But on top of that, I mean, Yan Xiaonan could end up being a champion. She's getting a shot. I don't think she's going to win that fight. Song Yudong's looked real good. If he beats Piotr Yan, he's in a really good spot. Can't wait for that fight. And Tyre is definitely going to fight for the belt. That guy's super good. He's a problem. Dude is a problem. I think Neos GX01 speaks for us all. Happy that UFC 298 is almost here. The past fight night cards have been a slog. Yes, they have. Kind of music y'all think Mike Heck rocking with? I am an old school hip hop guy. 90s, early 2000s. That's my wheelhouse. All my playlists feature that almost exclusively. Mike, did you see Cyborg and Clarissa Shields yapping at each other? Aren't they friends and training partners? Is it a work to gain interest in a boxing / MMA series between both ladies? Probably. I mean, just the I don't know. It got no buzz at all. Just none. And it's kind of too bad, but I'm just telling it like it is. The thing had no buzz. I don't like, is there really interest in this boxing fight? I have no interest in watching them fight in MMA because Chris Cyborg would absolutely run her over. Do we have any interest in watching Chris Cyborg box Clarissa Shields? I don't know. If you're replacing best, most likely fighter to miss weight today. Golly. I mean, based on what I've seen on Twitter this morning, I'd say Oban Elliott because I don't know if that's a work or not, but Richard Shore tweeted out like, oops, thought the fight was at 185, so now we're trying to cut off the rest of the weight. I don't know if that's true or not, but it seems like him, but I think everybody will make it. Ilia seems pretty respectful behind the cameras. Even the whole belt grab felt fake. Playing the heel publicly. Does playing a character versus real beef make much of a difference in the eyes of the public? Sure. people hate when I say this or anybody else says this, especially newer fans. They friggin' hate this, but it's so true. The growth of the UFC, more so than any other promotion because they've done it right, is rooted in pro wrestling. It's character driven to a certain extent. The promotional materials, all of it is old school WWF. It's what it is. And it's always been that way for them. So having a character come in here and babyface and heel, all of that, they're doing it smart. This is what you do to drum up interest. It's WWF 101, and they do it very, very well. So, do you see John Anik hosting press conferences from now on, or is Dana White avoiding the question about UFC 300? I mean, we've seen Anik do a lot more of these. So, and I've said this since day one. Anik should be doing all of them. He should be doing every single one. And this, I already know there's some people like, oh, you only say because you hate Dana and you hate the UFC, which is ridiculous. You can see it in John's eyes that he gives a shit about what is going on up there. Dana looks completely uninterested in anything UFC related right now. Completely uninterested. He's super interested in Power Slap. Super interested in playing blackjack with the Nelk boys. Which is fine. Like, do you. It's fine. But even Dana at those press conferences, doesn't even seem all that into it. It's all about gates and money and... What was the question? That's what it is. Anik is just, super into it. So, and Anik knows how to host. He lets things go to the right amount of time. If there's a back and forth with certain fighters and it's going on a little too long, he knows when to step in. He knows when to let things breathe, but he also knows when to stop it. Anik's just so good in that role. He should be doing all of them. He should be doing all. The only thing we should see Dana at, in my opinion, when it comes to the UFC, there's two things. One, he should be doing the face-offs with the fighters before the pay-per-views in the big fight night cards and the post-fight press conference. That's it. That's it. He doesn't need to do the pre-fight press conference. He doesn't need to do anything else. He really doesn't. But he just doesn't seem all that interested in the UFC stuff anymore. And that's okay. He's trying to build a new thing. But you still need Dana around for sponsors and the business side and kind of keep everybody in line. Matt, what happens if Arman loses to Charles? Does the UFC like him enough to give him the Beneil treatment back to the top? It's a good question. The road will not be easy for him. Just like it's not easy for really anybody who loses at that point at 155. So I also don't think Arman's going to lose to Charles. So that's a different conversation. But no, I think Arman's far more interesting than Beneil Dariush. No offense to Beneil. He is a fun fighter, and I think he deserves better. He deserved to fight for the belt. But he's also made a ton of mistakes. Arman hasn't made a lot of mistakes on the microphone, from what I've seen. When the moment counts, he's ready to go. He ain't coming out here after getting a win and saying, I'll fight 10 more guys before I fight for the belt. No, Arman knows better. He's not going to do that. He called out Dustin Poirier, he called out Justin Gaethje, he called out Charles Oliveira. All realistic fights, all fights he deserved to have. That's how you do it. But that fight is super interesting. Why did Ilia look so uncomfortable with the press? They're surely not the boost in the crowd with this insane level of confidence. I don't think he looked that uncomfortable. He is cutting weight too. Those press conferences come 12 hours, 12, 14, 15 hours before you have to cut weight. Ilia's a pretty big dude. So that's probably a lot of it. So came for the MMA coverage, stayed to ask CrossFit questions. What's your favorite and least favorite CrossFit movement? I don't know. I like a lot of the lifting stuff. I think you know where I'm going with the least favorite movements, but anything with a burpee just absolutely sucks. Did a whole bunch of those today. Pretty much the entire WOD workout today was my least favorite things. It was ground to overhead, so there's a lot of power snatches going on, and then burpees, like front facing burpees over the barbell. All of those suck. Terrible. But I like a lot of the stuff we're doing on like our strength cycle now. Doing a lot of deadlifts, doing a lot of squats, doing bench, stuff like that. Like, that's what I like. Right in my wheelhouse. Takira Man 91. Am I the only one that thinks Costa has the potential to be similar fun fight like the two Whittaker Romero fights? One of two things is going to happen. Either Robert Whittaker is just going to do what he did to Marvin Vettori, which I don't think is going to happen, or two, this is going to be super fun. I'm going to choose the latter. I think it is going to be a fun fight. I think Robert is going to win, but Costa looks ready to go, man. He looks ready. And it's not like the heart and the grit won't be there. It's just a matter of like Costa's skill set, if his weirdness can affect Rob's just unbelievable technique. And we'll see. A lot of questions about how Volk's coming back after a bad knockout loss. I have a lot of questions about Robert Whittaker coming off of a real bad loss to Dricus du Plessis too. Like at least when you look at the two knockouts side by side, Islam wrapped a tree trunk around Volkanovski's head. The punch that DDP landed on Whittaker that knocked him down was not this like ferocious Ngannou Alistair Overeem punch. It was just like, it was a short little shot that dropped him and that was it. And I know Whittaker's been saying like he had a lot going on heading into that camp, but it's a big one for Bobby Knuckles. It's a big one. Estiga, Anthony Hernandez deserved a ranked opponent. He's been looking really impressive. Agree. He was supposed to fight Ikram Aliskerov. I don't think Ikram's not ranked in the UFC rankings. I have Ikram ranked in my rankings. Like, I think right now Ikram Aliskerov is a top 10 middleweight. I think he beats a lot of guys already that are in the top 10. I would pick him to beat Jack Hermanson. I picked Joe Piper to beat Jack Hermanson. Wasn't as confident as I would be picking Ikram Aliskerov to beat Jack Hermanson. Like, that's how good I feel Ikram is. That was a great fight. Not saying that Roman's not a great fight, but Ikram couldn't make it. Kopylov stepped in. Good opportunity for him. Mike, 12 months ago, Volk was 1 minute away from being double champ. Why are people so stupid? It's the sport, man. Just remember, revisionist history. Just remember the feeling people had after the loss to Islam heading into the Yair fight. The amount of people that went on Heck of a Morning, the amount of people that went on a bunch of shows, a bunch of people on our staff coming out here saying that, man, Yair's about to pick off Volk. The cliff, he's about to start falling off that cliff. And then Volk perfect gamed him. Just beat that ass. Someone saying there's a headbutt. I think Yair mentioned that in the MMA hour. I don't know. Sometimes shit happens, man. Like you're winging punches at each other. You're in a freaking cage. Sometimes that stuff happens. Didn't get stopped. I didn't even really notice it at the time, but what else we got? Remember, if you guys want to jump the line, you can super chat. Did you ever tell us the fantastic Paulo Costa story you promised to tell us after UFC 294? I told you before UFC 294. And yeah, it was basically like you read it on ESPN like a week after I told the story. But it was basically to tell you that I knew Paulo Costa was out well before he was announced out. And I knew that they were looking for a new opponent for Khamzat Chimaev well before all of that stuff happened. And I knew that one of the first phone calls they made to fight Khamzat Chimaev was Sean Strickland. Sean Strickland had just won the belt, and they wanted Sean Strickland to come into Abu Dhabi and defend his title against Khamzat Chimaev. They asked about it. What do you think Sean Strickland said? Let's freaking go. But luckily for Sean Strickland, he has people around him who care about him, and we're like, I'm not saying like I would look at that fight and Khamzat would run over Sean Strickland, because what I learned more than anything watching Khamzat fight Kamaru Usman is that Khamzat Chimaev versus Sean Strickland might be one of the most intriguing matchups you can make at 185, because Sean is a friggin' horse. Dude doesn't stop. And if you don't kill that man, he's going to keep going. So that fight is super interesting to me. Incredibly interesting to me. So I'm not saying it as that, but they were like, this is more from a business sense. Like, dude, you are the champion right now. People should be chasing you. People should be calling other people to fight you on short notice, not you fighting them on short notice. Like, take a break. You just won the belt. Bide your time. Then make some big money. And they were right. But that was the story. That's all it was. But I was kind of like, there were so many pieces that needed to be filled in that I had to wait before I could tell that story. But I did tell it. As soon as they announced the replacement fighters, I ended up telling that story. Jesus Christ, there's a million questions. Thank you, Achilles Jr. Mike, do you think Jeff Neal has a good chance to beat Gary, or do you think Gary is that good? Jeff Neal is very good. I would never count him out of this fight. However, I think Ian Gary is just that good. I think Ian Gary is just that good. I think he is that guy. Love him or hate him, you don't have to like his personality. But that freaking dude, he is very good at fighting. He's very, very good. So, love it. When Dana did his If You Don't Know video, the Fluffy Kopylov fight was on the prelims and Dern Lemos was main card, hoping that was an oversight. Oh, God, please tell me. Let me look at the event page. If they frigging switch that up, I'm not going to be like livid, but I won't be happy. Okay. According to UFC website, it is Hernandez Kopylov opening the main card. We also got like the full list sent to us yesterday. And the full list has Hernandez Kopylov on the main card. Like the official list. Hernandez Kopylov is a great like fight to end the prelims with. But the problem is nobody like knows who either of them are. And I'm not saying that in a bad way. It's just the reality of the situation. Amanda Lemos has fought for a title. Mackenzie Dern is very popular. That's a fight you put on to draw eyeballs and draw a rating. But I love Hernandez Kopylov kicking off the pay-per-view. Like that fight is just gonna be chaos. Absolutely chaos. Even if it goes to full 15, it's gonna be nuts. Forrest, who has the most to lose and the most to gain at UFC 298 tomorrow? I think, honestly, and I'm not going to say the main event, because obviously, like, Ilia Topuria is the correct answer for the most to gain, because he gains it all. And we talked about this on BTL yesterday about, from a business sense, is this a win-win? Is the main event a win-win fight for the UFC? Because they like Volk. Volk's been great with them, doesn't say no to anything, comes through on short notice if they need him to, and he's getting more popular each and every fight. But Topuria becomes a frigging superstar if he wins. So I think Jed put it absolutely perfectly, that the UFC is in a they're not in a win-win, but they're in a we can't lose situation. But they can win huge if Topuria wins this fight. In regards to the question, I think you can make a case that the answer to both of these questions is Merab Dvalishvili. If Merab wins, look, if Sean O'Malley dusts up Marlon at 299, there might be like another hurdle Merab has to overcome. But if somehow Cheeto wins the belt and Merab wins, he's 1,000% getting a title shot. But if Merab loses, he may never get a title shot. We know how the UFC feels about him. And we know how they felt about him when Aljamain Sterling, his teammate, was the champion. If Merab loses, he is in deep shit. So, honestly, I think the answer is Merab on both. Gertzy Films. Can Costa redline the pace of the fight against Rob per se like DDP did and find similar success? Sure. Yeah. If this is a battle of whose technique is better, then Whitaker's going to win that fight every time. If this is a MMA fight, by definition, Rob's going to win. If this is a Paulo Costa fight, that's his best chance. Things got to get weird. They got to get nasty. They got to get grimy. They got to get bloody. That's how Costa wins. But if this is like hey, let's see who's the better boxer and let's see who the better MMA fighter is, then Rob's going to win that fight 9 out of 10 times. But if Costa makes this weird and ugly, he's got a shot to win. So I guess to your question, wouldn't hurt. Wouldn't hurt. Free for All Friday, what's your favorite movie or movies? Jesus. These questions always are so tough. Last time I was asked this, we kind of turned it into like, if you're scrolling through the TV, what's the, like if you're the old days of cable before you had streaming, like if you're flipping through the channels, if you land on one movie that you're going to stop and automatically watch, Shawshank is probably right at the top of that list. It's a guaranteed banger. But there's a bunch too. Like all the Boston movies are all good. Departed's great. Town's great. Everything except for what's that piece of shit movie that Jimmy Fallon made? Oh, Fever Pitch. Ugh, that was god awful. I was like embarrassed to be a Red Sox fan after that awful movie came out. Is he drinking and golfing on Insta? Hey. Good for him. Who walks out of UFC 300 as the number one contender to the lightweight title? Man, that's so tough. It's so tough. It's hard to say. I'm going to say Arman Tsarukyan. Mostly it's the gimmick now because I'm the only one on MMA Fighting who, when we did our divisional championship predictions, I picked Arman Tsarukyan, cashing in the Money in the Bank briefcase. Been holding on to that bad boy with Arman's face on it for a long time now, and this is the year I cash it in. So I will say Arman Tsarukyan, mostly for the gimmick, and also I think him and Charles are gonna absolutely try to kill each other. And I think Arman gets the better of like a big exchange and wins the fight early. But it wouldn't shock me at all if Charles won that wild exchange. Like that fight is going to be a tornado of destruction. But Gaethje and Max are going to probably put on a war, and I don't know. It's interesting. The correct answer is who is the most available. Like when Islam is ready to, when Islam is ready to fight, it is whoever is available. That's it. Availability is the best friend. But if it's like, if we're not looking at Islam to like Abu Dhabi in October, I'll say Arman Tsarukyan. But I could absolutely be wrong about that. Who should Mike Perry fight next? Interesting question. I'm going to not answer that right now. You'll see why. I don't know, but you'll see why I'm gonna save that question for another time. Jared versus Costa if Costa wins. I don't think Jared's in a good spot right now, guys. I really don't. Just think about all these times, and I actually feel bad about this. Just think about all the times we talk about middleweight. Just think about what we're all talking about after UFC 297. Like, who's next? Where does this guy go? Where does this guy go? And we mention all these names. And how many times do we forget to mention Jared Cannonier's name? And it's unfortunate. It's not totally fair, but that's just sort of the nature of the situation. Cannonier's got to come back and fight somebody. I don't know who that's going to be. I love the fact that he called out Khamzat Chimaev because I don't think he's getting a title shot. But I think I don't know what they're going to do with him. I think he's going to end up fighting Brennan Allen or something. Maybe they do Usman? If Usman's staying at 185, that's not a bad one. I know Brendan Allen's fighting Marvin Vettori, but I don't hate Khamzat versus Cannonier at all. I really don't. You could do Khamzat versus Cannonier in Saudi Arabia. I think that's fine. I think Khamzat's the big draw anyways. And if Cannonier wins that fight, that's the win that kind of makes you undeniable, does it not? Jonathan Martinez, the dark horse at 135. Yeah, man. He's good. He's one of the guys that I've given him a better nickname than what he has right now. He's I've been calling him this since after his second UFC fight. He's the silence behind the violence. He's just such a nice guy, but he's so awkward. In the best way. He's just so shy. I've heard stories about him being so scared to even order food at restaurants that he has his coach order his food for him because he's just that awkwardly shy. He's definitely gotten a lot better. But John's good. I actually thought he was going to get the Umar fight. I think that would have been a great fight for him. I'm not saying, it's a tough one, no doubt about it. But for a guy that wants to take it to the next level and get over, make his road a little bit shorter. Yeah. Scott, I'm interested in seeing the interaction between Gaethje and Holloway this afternoon, but as a Gaethje fan, I'm already nervous about this fight. Max is so good. They're going to put each other over. It's going to be fun. Did Ilia not being fluent in English make the press conference more cringe on his side than if he was? Does a language barrier affect his ability to sell? No, I don't think so. Ilia is a very sharp guy. Again, I think a lot of it was he's cutting weight. But yeah, I was in Jacksonville after he beat Josh Emmett. Dude got up to the press conference, spoke incredible English. He's come a long way. When do you think Fiziev comes back from his injury? Great question. When was that fight? The Gamera fight was in September. I'll say end of the year. I have no insight to this, but just kind of going by what his injury is, the recovery is typically like. Look at Calvin Kattar. It's a while. New sub here. Thoughts of the Welsh gangster fighting this weekend? I think he gained a lot of fans going on the MMA Hour. I learned more about Oban Elliott in that interview than I ever have. And I think he's got a lot of support. Is he a spectacular fighter? No. Is he solid? Yeah. But I think people are going to like him in his personality more. So he has the ability to have a Bonfim type moment. Like, remember when the Bonfim brothers made their UFC debuts in Brazil and they both got like really quick finishes and they were sort of like big talking points, like kind of low key, but they were like low key stars, like low key MVPs of the events. I kind of feel like Oban Elliott, if he has a great performance, can be one of those guys. Dustin said he wouldn't want to fight Armin in an interview recently. Armin is a weirdo for saying he wants to fight a guy he trains in the same gym with. I get where Poirier is coming from, but I still, at the end of the day, like, you got to try to get to the belt, man. Even if you beat Dustin, like, go beat Dustin. Like, there have been a lot of ATT versus ATT fights. That's a huge-ass gym with 1 million dudes and gals fighting at it, so I don't hate it. Free for All Friday question. Could you explain the different roles everyone does at MMA fighting? Man. I really don't like know them all, honestly. Because like we all wear a lot of hats. Like, we all have like specific titles. So like my specific title is multimedia producer. So like, I do a lot of the production stuff on the podcasts, host a lot of the video stuff. Sometimes I have to edit video, but multimedia is like writing and all this stuff. So like, I'm the utility player. I'm the Tony Phillips for old school baseball fans. And then everyone just kind of has different roles. Like Shaheen's a deputy editor. So like, technically, like, if we're going like chain of command, Shaheen is like my direct boss. And pretty damn good one to have, if we're being honest, because he helps me a lot. I'm working on like a really big feature that we're going to try to drop next week. It's one of those like long form, sort of under the radar stories that you don't typically hear about, but there's a lot to it. And there's like, there's going to be like an audio documentary podcast attached to this as well that I've been producing. And Shaheen's been like super helpful with those, because I'm not a great writer. I'll be the first one to tell you. But Shaheen is probably the best in the world. He's a top 3 when it comes to MMA writing. Like, him and Chuck Mindenhall and like Ben Folks, like, they are tremendous. Curious about the watch party, Mike. What should we expect on Saturday? Funky outfits, cool guests, awesome cold open. You always get the awesome cold open. Cool guests. I don't think we have any guests. I think we are going to incorporate some Q&A stuff into the watch party. So stay tuned for that. I will tell you this. If just something that again, we don't know what's going to happen. It's going to be very similar to 297, where it's just going to be him and us. Like, we'll play the video game, we'll rip packs, we'll do trivia, we'll have fun. If they do not announce the UFC 298 main event during the broadcast, we are going to stay on until Dana announces it. So we're going to have the watch party feed. That stream is going to continue on. We will have the feed of the press conference on our website as well, so you can sort of pick and choose. And then once Dana announces the 298 main event, we will spend like another 5 to 10 minutes reacting to it. But I'm very excited. Has everyone forgotten about Cater? If he demolishes Aljo, can we finally see him get a title shot in 2024, 2025? Yeah. I don't know. I would love to see it. But no, it's not going to happen. But this is it's a perfect entry fight for Aljo because it's a tough one. It's a tough one. Cater's very good. He's a good defensive wrestler. He's actually a pretty good offensive wrestler. Cater's a big dude. Like, he's a big featherweight. Not a lot of times that Aljamain Sterling is fighting somebody as big as Calvin Cater. And Cater could friggin' crack, man. So, it's a great fight. I love that fight a lot. Is Hamzat's first title challenge a middleweight or welterweight? Middleweight. All right, we'll go rapid fire. We'll go another like 7 or 8 minutes. Yava, do you think stylistically Izzy is a good matchup for DDP at the moment for 300? Mighty was talking about it on the MAR, saying he needs to add more tools based on the style matchup. I don't like terribly disagree with that, but I would pick DDP to win that fight. But how many times have we broke down an Israel Adesanya fight where he fought somebody who's like a way better wrestler than him, and we're like, well, all you gotta do is take Izzy down and you'll win. And then they can't take him down. So I think Izzy's competitive in that fight, but I would pick DDP. Strickland versus Cannonier 2. The first fight wasn't that fight was not good. That fight was not good. Jared's getting too much flack for the Izzy dud 2 years earlier. He's normally pretty entertaining. I could not disagree with you more. Could not disagree with you more. He deserves all of the flack. I'm sorry. I understand that Izzy's the champion and, you know, he wants to be exciting and he promised all this stuff. But he also was preparing and thought that Jared Cannonier was going to come in guns blazing and try to knock him out, which is what he told everybody. But instead, he just handed Israel Adesanya a friggin' title defense. Izzy's like, oh, this is what we're doing? All right. Okay, cool. I'll take it. Give me the free win and the extra cash. Sweet. So I defended Israel Adesanya on the post-fight show that night. What if Merab wins close split decision and is injured? Does Henry then not retire and get the next shot? No, I think if Henry loses, he could always tease a comeback. You know he's going to be on Twitter saying I'm coming back. He's going to talk shit about all the middleweight or all the bantamweights. You know what's going to happen. Thank you, Achilles. Any specific fighters you feel really good about winning this weekend? Help me with my picks. Look, if you're coming, let me just tell you something, Achilles, and I appreciate everything you've brought to this super chat stuff. If you're looking for me to give you gambling advice, you're coming to the wrong place. Although I did pretty good for 297. But if we're talking like straight picks, I feel like Rinya's going to, I feel pretty confident Rinya wins, but he's a minus 1350 favorite. I feel like Miranda Maverick should probably win, but Andrew Lee's tough. And she needs to win this fight very, very badly. I like Merab to beat Henry Cejudo. I do think that fight is super competitive. But I do think Merab will win. I like Ian Gary a lot. I think he's going to beat Jeff Neal. So I'll tell you what I have. And you can jump along or entail me or fade me altogether, and I don't blame you either way because I'm not good at this. So here's what I got. I got Volk minus 125. I got Volk by KO, TKO, DQ plus 250. Whitaker minus 3.5 points, minus 125. Ian Gary minus 3.5 points, minus 125. I also have a small sprinkle on Ian Gary by submission at plus 800 because I feel like he's going to try to do that in this fight. Not a lot. I mean, when I say it's sprinkle, it's a freaking sprinkle. Merab by decision at minus 135. Hernandez Kopylov under 2.5 at minus 170. And then I have a little passive parlay that I've cooked up. Main event over 1.5. Co-main over 1.5. Merab Henry over 1.5. And then to cap it off, just the riskiest parlay play of all, Dern Lemos over a half a round. Pays at plus 117. So there you have it. But don't trust me. And I don't want any shit. Like if you guys are like, oh, I'm doing the Mike Heck picks here. I don't want to hear you. I prefaced it. I've warned you already. Tail at your own risk. 4 more minutes. Thank you, Iser Planet. Says the regional feeder circuit run dry. What's your take on true talent coming from lower leagues? Seems like it doesn't happen much anymore. Is it dry? I don't know if it's dry, but it's just a different business now. We have the Contender Series, which is bigger and bigger. It's just about filling spots at this point. We have a lot of managers that are just kind of accruing talent, and some of these managers have tremendous relationships with the UFC. And to be clear, it's very helpful for those fighters who it's like, it's my dream to get to the UFC and fight in that octagon. It's great. But there are a lot of cases where fighters took short notice fights or got on the Contender Series short notice or even got a contract after a win on the Contender Series who were not ready. Just not ready to go. And they're still not ready. There's probably 150 fighters on the roster who are not UFC ready. And just like what we think UFC ready is. So I wish it was a thriving scene like it once was, but it is still pretty good. Like New England's still got some good promotions. Cage Titans, CES. There's others. Combat FC. Shout out to Joe Cav. And then you got like the LFAs and stuff like that. The problem is there are fighters in LFA right now. Like there's a guy named let me pull up his name real quick. His name's Isaac Thompson, that I know. He's an Australian fighter. He trains with Alpha Male right now. Kid is 21 years old. He's 21. He's in LFA. This dude is a freaking problem. I'm telling you right now. I wrote a feature on him before his October fight in LFA. This kid is a savage. He is incredibly talented, a little rough around the edges, a little raw, but this dude is like, you go watch this guy fight, like you immediately see it. Since Arman Sarukian, this is like one of the like young fighters on the regional scene that I watched fight. It was like, holy shit, like this kid's going to be really good. And he's an LFA. Now, you put him with certain management companies, and he is probably in the UFC like 2 wins ago. But in reality, he's probably like, he could probably go there and compete right now. Like I'm pretty sure he's a featherweight, fought at lightweight as well. And he even said like he thinks he'd get to bantamweight when I talked to him. And he would win fights at all those divisions right now. I think he would. But you could still get a lot more seasoning in the LFAs of the world. And I think that's super important. That is so important right now. So I don't think it's completely dry, to answer your question. Long story short. Thank you, Democracy. Did you see Bigfoot Silva unretired in fights 323? Don't get me friggin' started with that. It's just sad at this point. Who is he fighting? Who is he fighting? I saw it and I was like, why is this happening? And I know it was a name too. Who the hell was it? Let me look it up. He's fighting Juan Espino. Jeez. That was it. I was like, what? What are we doing here? At least with Juan Espino, like, I don't think he'll get like badly beat up. I think he'll just get tapped real quick. So, yeah. Yeah, CFFC is great. Fatima Klein should be in the UFC right now. She is incredibly talented. She's very, very good. CFFC is doing a great job. Shout out to them. Like, I'll be honest with you. I'm always honest with you guys. For a while, like probably like 4 or 5 years ago, CFFC kind of annoyed me a little bit. Hey, thank you, Poocher. I appreciate that. Because like every time a fighter on the CFFC roster, like whoever fought there, like even if they like cornered a fighter, if they were on a UFC card, they'd be like, look at the guy that we brought into the promotion. This is our guy fighting. And I was like, why do you do that? And I talked to like certain members of the team, the matchmakers, Arias Garcia I've had conversations with. He didn't love me for a little while because there's the situation going on with Sean Santella when he was the flyweight champion and he vacated the belt and became a free agent. And I did this like interview with him and wrote it up. And he was kind of pissed off about that, being like, oh, this is the time you cover our events. And I'm like, it's not really true. But long story short, I love everything we're doing. Freaking love everything they're doing right now. Lots of events. I love the grappling stuff they're doing. They are killing it. They are killing it right now. So shout out to them. They've come a long way. They've always had good talent, but they're doing really good. Tremendous stuff. All right, last thing. Oops. I saw yesterday Marcel reported Vicente Luque versus Joaquin Buckley is booked March 30th. Thoughts on that fight? Too soon for Joaquin? I don't hate it. Look, Joaquin wanted a big fight. He's got a big fight. All right, last one. If Dana had that insane UFC 300 main event, he would drop the main card announcement on UFC 298 broadcast as usual, but he's not doing that. He wants to explain, do some PR at the post-fight press conference. If they announce, like I said this earlier, and I'll say it again, I truly believe this. If we do not hear the UFC 300 main event, my hope is that they announce it today. They do the UFC 300 like press conference or whatever before the ceremonial weigh-ins. I don't know if it's Q&A or a presser. I'm not really sure. That they announce it then. That'd be awesome. They do what they did for the John Jones Stipe announcement. The fight never happened, but I think it was like International Fight Week. It was like on their YouTube channel or whatever. They did Dana White's like, hey, big fight, going to Madison Square Garden this date. Here's the main event. It's John Jones versus Stipe. Like, that was cool. It was just like, oh shit, this is happening. This is awesome. If we don't get that, I'm hoping we get it announced on the broadcast. Like, we get through Fluffy Hernandez and Roman Kopylov and they beat the hell out of each other and it's a great fight. Someone gets finished. We're on a high. We're ready to go. Right into Merab and Henry Cejudo. John Anik's like, we got this thing. What a fight it's going to be coming up next. And they fade to black and all of a sudden, boom, here's the promo. Izzy and DDP in the middle of the octagon after DDP knocks out Whitaker. They have their back and forth. DDP wins the belt, calls out Izzy. Izzy accepts on Instagram, makes the video. That's your promo. You cut the freaking promo, boom, nailed it. People are going to go bananas. They will love it. If that does not happen, and we wait until the press conference, we are getting Leon versus Bilal. And it's going to be tough. Boy, is that going to be tough. I know he says the post-fight press conference or whatever, but if you actually listen to the answer, it was just kind of like roll the eyes at this point. Izzy DDP's right there. What are we doing? What are we doing? And it's just that they botched this so badly. It's so bad. If they just announced that fight first and then build everything else, it's fine. Like, it's okay. Even if they, like New York Rick said this on BTL yesterday, even if they, when they announced the Justin Gaethje Max Holloway fight, if they just announced Leon Bilal there, like, people would have been like, okay, fine. But we're still like, this isn't great, but we're still getting Holloway versus Gaethje, which is awesome. I think it would have been okay. But just the way they've pushed this out, this is going to be the greatest thing you've ever seen. I'm going to knock your socks off. You guys aren't even ready for what I'm about to announce as this main event. Like, all these promises that this is going to knock your freaking socks off. This is going to blow your minds. Like they've never been blown before. And then you give us Leon versus Bilal? Like, that is just a letdown. You've overcomplicated this to no end. And it didn't need to be that. And I was the one defending them for a while. I was defending this, being like, hey, relax a little bit. Like, it's going to be a really good card. Like, it's okay. We're going to be fine. Just patience. They're going to build something up real good. And then it plateaued into this whole, you guys think you know what this main event is going to be, but when I announce it, you ain't ready. Well, you better deliver that. But again, I don't think at the end of the day they really care. I think they're still going to sell out that arena no matter what the main event is. I still think it's going to do 1 million pay-per-views no matter what the main event is. So at the end of the day, it's still going to do well. It's still going to do bonkers. And Dana will be like, see, told you. This card delivered. But we'll see. And I've said this as well. God, I feel bad for Bilal and all of this. I really do. And even if they announce this fight, they're all going to shit on Bilal. Every single person is going to be like, oh, what the fuck? It's all Bilal's fault. But that's just what they've made Bilal at this point. Bilal is the walk of shame of the UFC welterweight division right now. And it's unfortunate that he's been put in this position. So, all right, we're done. Thank you very much. Appreciate you. Hey, the 20 minutes from right now, as you see me and hear me, official weigh-ins kicking off from Anaheim, California. Casey Leiden, the baddest stash in MMA, will be there bringing you the coverage. I believe my best friend will be on the broadcast as well. And that's going to happen. And as soon as that is over, we are going to go live still on this here channel for the preview show, which will be, I think the plan is 2 p.m. Eastern right now. So weigh-ins are done. We're getting right into the preview show. It's going to be a very busy day. So stick with us here at MMAfighting.com. Shout out to all of you who asked questions. Super shout out to all the super chatters. We'll be back on this program Tuesday. We'll be on Twitter as usual. Appreciate you very much. Enjoy the rest of your Friday. Have a heck of a morning, everybody. And let's get ready for UFC 298, a card that deserves all the love because it's a damn good one. Enjoy the rest of your day, everybody.